In this class we want to talk about 10 barriers to marketing planning. So we want to identify the barriers and then discuss these. However, before we get that far, we want to look at marketing planning and look at the issues, some issues surrounding marketing planning. You'll see from the bottom right hand corner of the screen there are 115 slides in this video. So it's quite a long one. I suggest strongly that you make notes right throughout the video. Stop the video from time to time, have a break. Just remember to come back to the video when you've had your break. Have a break, come back and carry on. But I don't suggest you attempt to watch it all in one go. There's quite a lot of material in here and it's important that it's clearly understood. So let's start. We'll start by talking about marketing planning. Now, marketing planning is a process organizations use to assess marketing objectives and make plans to achieve these objectives. So, in a nutshell, marketing planning is about setting objectives. The organization sets objectives and then sets about implementing the plans to bring about the objectives. So it's planning how to achieve the objectives. So in a nutshell, that's what marketing planning is. The process is a logical sequence of activities. Management, employees, staff, members of all sorts, stakeholders, they all contribute towards the development of the objectives. So the objectives must be realistic, they must be achievable, they must be within a certain time scale, what we sometimes call the SMART objectives. But they must be achievable, they must be realistic. And once the objectives are set out, then a plan is needed to ensure that the objectives are achieved. Marketing planning is a complex exercise and there are many barriers that need to be taken into consideration. It's not just simply a question of identifying what the organization wants to achieve, for the organization to set out its objectives, in other words. That's not simply good enough. There must be routes identified or mechanisms or processes identified that will enable the organization to achieve what it sets out to accomplish. So it's complex because sometimes what's required will interact with other parts of the business and may cause problems in other parts of the business. So for example, if the company set itself a large sales target in the coming year, let's say, then there will be major implications for the production department, for the marketing department, for the sales and after sales services and so on. So it is a complex process. The organization has to make sure that all the parts of the organization are capable of meeting the requirements of the marketing plan. Now, the importance of marketing planning. Well, marketing planning is essential for the following reasons. It's important to identify target markets. If the company does not identify its target markets, it's drifting. It doesn't have a focus. And because it doesn't have a focus, the chances are it's not going to do well. It may not even survive. It must identify what its target markets are, it must identify them clearly and then focus in on hitting those markets and getting sales within the markets and establishing itself within those markets. It must plan and devise short-term and long-term marketing strategies. The company must realize, organizations must realize that there are different timescales and sometimes objectives can't be met in the very short run. They need to be built upon. They need to be built up over a period of time. So the company may set itself short-term objectives, but the short-term objectives may feed into a longer-term plan. But the company must clearly identify what is short-term and what is long-term. Where does it want to be in the long run, and what's it doing right now? And there can be a difference between the two, so it should be clear about both short-term and long-term marketing strategies. It should identify the business as a whole, and marketing is the center to customer satisfaction. It's imperative that the organization realizes that the success of the business hinges on the success of the marketing strategy. Customers, in a sense, interface with the business through marketing personnel, through aftercare service, through representatives of the business, through contacts on the phone or face-to-face or whatever it is. But it's the marketing department who link the business to the market. So it's important that the marketing department are properly resourced, properly planned, and given credit for the work that they do on behalf of the business. The marketing plan should identify and allocate resources and assess organization capabilities. When drawing up the marketing plan, it's important to understand what the business can do. What are its limitations? What are its shortages in terms of resources? It may be short of skilled personnel. It may not have people with the right sets of competencies and skills and abilities that are required to make the product. It may have to engage in expensive training exercises. It may also be short of just floor space on the factory floor or capital. And all the time it must understand the importance of cash flow, that it can't simply invest in what is required or what appears to be required at the expense of cash flow, because it needs to maintain itself, it needs to pay its bills, it needs to pay wages and salaries and obligations. So the marketing plan must strike a balance between the resources that the company have and the resources that are required, and try and plan out how best to achieve its marketing plans given its envelope of resources. Organizations can measure progress and outcomes. It's important that they can measure this. There should be some metrics in place, some way of judging whether the plan has been successful or not. It's important that the company can identify what it's doing, what its processes are currently, and how successful those processes are in achieving the short-run objectives. So what's happening to sales figures? What's the presence of the company in certain markets? How is it doing vis-a-vis its competitors? There should be some way of assessing its performance and taking remedial action if it's not performing well. And this should be done in a timely manner. It should be done fast, so as not to allow wasted resources or to allow time to elapse to give competitors the advantage in the market. The marketing plan simply promotes direction and responsibilities. It gives the company a direction. The company knows where it's going. It has a marketing plan. It has a strategy. It knows what it's trying to achieve. But also, crucially, within the plan, responsibilities can be allocated. There can be a marketing director who is responsible for ensuring that the marketing plan has been implemented. There may be production directors and production managers and accounts managers and all sorts of people involved, and their responsibilities can be specified within the marketing plan, so that if there is a failure it's possible to trace it down to the individuals who have let down the side. Trace it down to the individuals who did not perform, did not do what was required of them. Now let's look at the barriers to marketing planning. Well, MacDonald 1989 identifies 10 barriers to marketing planning. And what I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to state these 10 barriers, and then we're going to, once they're stated towards the end, we're going to go on to discuss each of them in more detail. So I'm just going to state the 10 barriers just for the moment to get them onto paper to enable you to write these down and get a framework for your notes. So the 10 barriers that MacDonald identified are as follows. Confusion between tactics and strategy. So just make a note of these, and I'll go across each of them in a few moments once we've stated them. Isolating the market functions from operations. Confusion between the marketing function and the marketing concept. Organizational barriers. If I'm going too fast here, just stop the video and make a note, and then just carry on playing it. Lack of in-depth analysis. As I said, they sound complex at the moment, but we'll discuss what's meant by these later. Confusion between process and output. Lack of knowledge and skills. Lack of a systematic approach to marketing planning. Failure to prioritize objectives. Hostile corporate culture. Now we've got 10 barriers here that are being listed out, and I said I'm going to go through these. So we're going to start with, obviously enough, we're going to start with the first one, which is confusion between tactics and strategy, and then we'll go on to discuss the rest, which will be the rest of this video. So we'll start with number 1, confusion between tactics and strategy. Well, confusion about marketing terminology stands as a barrier to effective marketing planning in organizations. Quite simply, there is a confusion about the role of marketing in many organizations. Many people within organizations don't precisely know why marketing is important or what marketing does. To many lay people, it may be a confusion between marketing and advertising. They see marketing as simply advertising the product and promoting the product in that way. But marketing, as we know, is much more. There's much more involved in the marketing process. Key amongst which is the relationship that the marketing department develops with the customers, develops with the warehouses, the shops, the outlets, and directly with the customers themselves, and also nowadays through its online presence. So the customers link to the organization through the marketing department, and it's the marketing department that tries to determine customers' needs and wants and tries to provide a product and a service that fulfills those requirements and hence enhances the reputation of the business in the marketplace. Organizations' approach and behavior, their approach and behavior towards marketing planning plays a significant role in its effectiveness. So organizations should recognize the importance of the marketing function and support it, because without the marketing function they will have production and stores and distribution channels and so on, but they won't have any sales. They won't have that many sales, perhaps. They won't have perhaps an increasing image and reputation within the marketplace. They need to be in the marketplace and recognized in the marketplace and recognized fully in the marketplace by customers and by middlemen and so on. Very few organizations are able to distinguish between strategic, the long-term marketing, and tactical, short-term marketing. Investment in the reputation of the business, investing in the image of the business, in the reliability of the business, in the perception of the business that's held within the community, the wider community, the wider market. That perception is long term. That's very similar to capital. That's something that the company can draw on in the future. It establishes a reputable image in the marketplace, so customers trust it. Customers know the business, they recognize the name, they recognize the brand, they recognize it as quality, and customers will be loyal to that business. And that's a long-term investment. That's built up over a long period of time. The short-term marketing tactics could be to have promotions in certain areas and to focus attention in certain areas and try to build up sales and build up outlets perhaps in particular places. That could be short term. But the long term is the image and the reputation, the reliability of the product, the quality of the product, the after sales service, the pricing strategy itself. That's a long term investment. And it's important to distinguish between the two. Clearly both are important, but for long-term survival, long-term strategy will pay dividends. Due to globalization and the increasing competition in markets and industry has put greater emphasis on the need to extrapolate strategic plans. Companies are under pressure because of globalization. The competitors in the past would be broadly domestic, and there would be a lot known about the competitors through history of trading in the market. They know what the competitors are doing. They know what they're up to. They know their strategies. But in globalized markets, they may not be familiar with the competitors. They may not know precisely what the competitors are planning or what products they're bringing out or what their strategies are or how they'll respond to changes in the strategy of the business. So it's much more complex in a globalized world. Most organizations put emphasis on tactical short-term marketing plans and fail to set strategic long-term marketing. Now, I say most, that's what the literature seems to suggest. It's an empirical statement. I haven't got evidence to support this, but reading the text, it seems to suggest that many writers seem to say that short-term is very important to business. But it's the long-term marketing effort, establishing the reputation of the business, like I said earlier, the quality of the product and so on. That's what will sustain the business in the long run. And that's what is really a problem for the competitors, to try and break into a market where there is an established seller in the market, one who's got a good reputation. So the competitors will find it difficult to deal with the organization if it has established its credentials in that way. But having said that, a lot of writers seem to suggest that companies emphasize the short-term marketing plans covering perhaps a short period of time in a particular market, blasting the market with personnel and trying to build up sales and having events in that particular area and so on, trying to get the name established. But as I said earlier, the long term, the the more strategic marketing issues are very important to establish the reputation of the business, the quality of the business, the aftercare service, to give the customers long-term satisfaction, to build up and establish the reputation of the product as a quality product in the marketplace. So if you look at the focus on tactical marketing, there are various, in this diagram, in this little diagram, we have the board of directors, the very senior management. We have the senior management itself, the departmental managers and so on, the middle managers and the operations. So we have the various layers of the organization represented on the left-hand side. And you can see what the literature seems to be suggesting, that there's a small amount of effort placed by some parts of the organization on strategic planning, and this will normally include the very senior managers of the business, the board of directors. It'll involve very senior management, but middle management and operations, those will be more tactical and more day-to-day orientation. So the long run strategic considerations are only dealt with by the senior management and the board. That's the view that seems to come across. If there's a focus on strategic marketing, then it could be the case that more people are involved, more opinions are sought. So the board of directors, the very senior management, a lot of them will be involved in trying to work out the strategic direction of the business, but they may also canvass opinion from senior management, middle management and from operations to see what is it the organization can do. So more people are involved perhaps if they're going to place proper emphasis on strategic marketing. More people within the organization from different strata of the organization may subscribe ideas and opinions about the direction, the way in which the strategic plans and strategic marketing can be set out, what should be included, how it should be implemented and so on. Effective marketing planning requires the development of strategic planning before tactical planning. So if it's going to be effective, if the organization is going to be under control, then it should really have worked out its long-term plans, and then, having set out its long-term plans, work out its short-term. Its short-term is its day-to-day plans, its routines on a day-to-day basis and perhaps month-by-month basis and so on. But the long-term is the direction in which the business wants to travel. And there should not be a contradiction between the two. The short-term are the efforts that are put in short-term to generate particular results and to stimulate customer sales in a particular area or whatever. But the long-term is what the company wants to achieve over a long period in terms of its position in the market, its reputation, its image, the quality of its product, its value for money, its after-sales service. Strategic planning ensures that organizations can scan their external environment and put pressures in place to overcome any barriers. So the strategic planning structure should be constantly monitoring the external environment. And the external environment here will be what the competitors are doing, but also we'll look at almost in a pest sense, we'll look at the economic environment. We'll look at disposable incomes. We'll look at employment within areas. We'll look at customer expenditure, look at the patterns of customer expenditure. More and more people are buying online, so perhaps more emphasis should be placed on selling and delivering its products from an online base. So strategic planning is more long-term, but it involves constantly scanning the external environment, constantly looking at what's happening within the external environment and trying to put measures in place to optimize its position in the market by recognizing what's happening in the external environment. Strategic planning requires all levels of management involvement and requires say a 3 to 5 year plan. Again, 3 to 5 years is what the literature seems to suggest. But strategic planning requires all levels of management involvement. For it to be effective, all the managers within the business should have subscribed some opinion or some recommendation, or should be involved in some way toward the development of the strategic plan. It's important that the strategic plan is effectively worked out, properly worked out, and to do that, obstacles and barriers and issues should be highlighted at the earliest possible opportunity. It would be a waste of time to continue developing the strategic plan only to find that certain parts of the organisation were not contacted or were not taken into account, and these turn out to be a problem down the line. So areas that are not normally linked with marketing should be consulted. For example, production. What is the point in trying to develop sales and market position and so on over a long period of time if the company does not have the capacity to produce? If the company will need extra equipment or extra training. So all of the managers within the business should really be consulted on the development of the strategic plan. Tactical planning requires a 1-year marketing plan extrapolated from the strategic marketing plan itself. So having got the long run plan, it's possible to work out the short run. And the short run should be, as I said earlier, it should conform to the long run. It should fit within the umbrella of the long run plan. The short term planning is undertaking activities, short run activities, but which contribute towards the achievement of the long run plan as well. They may seem short run and therefore somewhat piecemeal, but in fact they should be contributing towards the attainment of the long run plan, the strategic plan. Now the second point, isolating the market function from operations. Well, a common mistake made by organisations is the belief that marketing is a standalone function. The idea that marketing is done in the office. Now we've already broached this in the previous point, but again it's worth emphasising. Marketing is not standalone. Marketing is the involvement of all parts of the organisation. Their contributions are important in the developing the strategic plan, and even indeed in the more day-to-day planning and routines of the marketing function. It's important that what's happening within the organisation, what the other parts of the organisation are doing or experiencing, that these are factored in. So it's a mistake to believe that marketing is somehow separate. The marketing section is separate from the organisation. The marketing plan and the marketing functions is what is giving the organisation direction. Chief executives need to see need to see the need for marketing planning. Often the process is seen as a time-consuming task which requires an organisational restructure. And tragically, that is the case, more so in the past, according to the literature. But now, chief executives, the chief executive officer or the managing director, or whatever the title is, they are starting to see marketing as crucial. Marketing is finally being recognised as an important function within the business. Organisations need to centre the marketing function around all operations and as close as possible to the customer. So marketing should be aware of all of the other functions. It should know where there are weaknesses and strengths within the organisation. It should know what the organisation is doing to address the weaknesses and promote the strengths, and what its policies are within the various other sections of the business. And it should also work out the requirements of the customer to make sure that all the efforts of the organisation, all the efforts of the various sections of the organisation are channeled towards the satisfaction of customer wants. They're making a product that the customer genuinely wants. It's good quality, it's good value for money, and it addresses customers' needs. And if it gets that right, then it's done its job correctly. Now, the third point is confusion between the marketing function and the marketing concept. There is a widespread ignorance concerning the concept of marketing. Again, the literature suggests that this is not just amongst the general population. This is amongst the chief executives of businesses. Now, the more modern literature suggests that it's changing, and it's changing rapidly, and now marketing is seen as very important. It's crucial for the business. But there was a lot of misunderstanding about what marketing was. As I said earlier, it was seen sometimes as a group of people who were remote from the organisation, working in an office, doing something vague, doing something which was an easy task compared to the hard work that was being done in production, let's say. Now it's changed. Now it's recognised that marketing is crucially important for the success of the business and for the development of the business, the direction in which the business is travelling. Now, the most common misconceptions that exist amongst senior management was confusion with sales. They saw marketing as something which was a selling function. It was selling the product, and in a sense, they saw that as a straightforward activity. Take the product to the customer and sell it to the customer. What could be simpler? In fact, we know from our study of marketing that there is so much more involved in the whole process. The process of trying to identify the customer's needs, trying to work out the pricing strategy, trying to work out the distribution and the most effective distribution channels for the product, the aftercare service that the customers require, the marketing channels that are going to be used, how is the business going to contact the customers. There was also confusion with product management. The business had to manage the product, manage its production, its design, and so on, and they felt that marketing was broadly concerned with sales. So it was for other experts and other people to design the product and produce the product. Now we know that design should be led by what the marketing personnel have discovered meets customer needs. Design should be driven by customer needs. There can be some innovative design which is revolutionary, but in a sense it's also quite experimental. It may take off or it may not. There's more risk involved in that type of development. There was certainly confusion with advertising. Many would see marketing and advertising as the same. It was the company drawing up some clever marketing images, or I should say not marketing, advertising images, and placing them in magazines or trade journals or billboards or whatever, and looking after advertising. Well, advertising is probably a very small part of what the marketing activity is. Marketing may look after the advertising of the product, but marketing is really trying to determine what the customers want, ensuring that the business is producing what they want, ensuring that the price is right, ensuring that the product is available, making sure that the customers are happy with the product, and giving them after-sales service. There's a lot more to marketing than simply putting some advertisements on a billboard beside the road. There was also confusion with customer service. Customer service in the past was seen as something annoying almost for companies, that customers had a problem with the product was faulty, the company had to deal with it. It was something almost begrudgingly done. And what marketing is attempting to do is to avoid customer service complaints by ensuring the quality of the product meets their requirements, that it represents good value for money, and there is effective after-sales support for the product. Confusion with sales. Well, marketing is seen as separate from the sales function. In fact, both sales and marketing work alongside each other. The sales activity and marketing activity should support each other. They're moving in the same direction. So there may be a sales team who contact customers on a regular basis and maintain customer contacts, and they've got their own clients on their books. So certain members of the sales team will be responsible for certain key customers. But the customer's experience of the product and their contact with the organization should really run through the marketing department. It is the marketing department that sets the image for the business, that sets the standards that need to be met. So really, sales and marketing should, if not agree, they should work completely together. It should work as a unit, because that is the customer experience. Confusion with product management. Well, the belief that success is only based on producing a good product. The push towards marketing is seen as unnecessary. One of the main reasons why businesses go bankrupt. This is one of the main reasons that businesses do go bankrupt. There is a belief amongst particularly the business community in the past, that a good product will sell itself, and that a product that customers want will sell itself, and therefore there's no need for marketing. There is no need for this unnecessary expenditure and complication. That was the belief. But in the world we live today, and probably the world that those people lived in the past, that did not conform to what the customers truly wanted. What customers want is a good experience. They want value for money. They have limited resources. Economics teaches us this. Resources are scarce. Incomes in households are scarce, and they want to spend wisely and get good value for money. They need to have good support for the product and backup if the product goes wrong. So having a marketing department, a contact point, is essential for good sales performance and good positioning in the market, good long-term positioning in the market. The confusion with advertising is ongoing. Marketing campaigns must deliver what they promise. Marketing must work alongside the marketing function. It's wrong for advertisers to make claims that they can't support. It gets the business a bad reputation. It gets the business a bad image, and customers will turn against it. The advertising campaigns themselves should be carefully worked out so as not to alienate customers. Maybe they need to be refined in all sorts of directions, depending on what is seen as right within the community at that moment in time. Investing in advertising expenditure is not a solution to tackle deep-rooted marketing problems. So if the product is not very reliable, and if it's difficult to contact the organization, and if there is very poor after-sales service and contact with technical people if the product breaks down or whatever the product is, if these are generally the case, then no amount of advertising is going to overcome it. Advertising will be a waste of money because it's not in line with the customer's experience. The customer's experience could be bad. They find it difficult to contact the organization. They're frustrated. The product is not of good quality. They're going to get alienated from the product, and the advertising is not going to solve that problem. There's also confusion with customer service. The belief customer service is key. However, organizations need to deliver what they promise. For example, British Rail. It is nice to British Rail no longer exists, but when they ran the train companies in the UK, it's nice to be treated nicely, but it's more important to arrive at the destination on time. So let's say we're using a train. It doesn't matter if it's Virgin trains or whatever the trains are in the UK today, or let's be honest, any train anywhere. It's nice to be treated nicely. It's nice to have a nice way to travel. But the purpose of travelling is to get to your destination on time. You don't want to get onto a nice train and for it to break down halfway to the destination, and you've got to sit there for several hours while they fix the train. You want reliability. So it's important to distinguish the core requirements of the customer and make sure the core requirements are met, and then put in place the additional facilities. So make sure the train arrives on time, and then when that's in the bag, when that's secure, then it's possible to go about getting the more hygiene factors in place, getting the carriages nicely done out and make sure everyone's got a seat and so on. Marketing should be placed at the centre of organisational activities. That's where we've got to. Marketing is crucial for organisations. This is what drives the design of the products, the amount of sales, the contacts with the customers, the image of the business, the long run viability of the business. So it should be placed at the centre of the organisational activity. Marketing is seen as a management process where all resources are invested in meeting the needs of customers and organizational objectives. So it's a management process where resources are invested in meeting the needs of customers. So it's the marketing department who know what the customers want through their researches and contact with the customers, and they feedback that to the organization so it's able to tweak its product in a way that more precisely meets customer requirements. Now, organizational barriers. Well, the structure of an organization can be a barrier to marketing planning. So it's important that the organizational structure enables marketing planning to take place. Most organizations are structured under functional departments. So one department will be production, one will be distribution, one will be sales, one will be HR, and so on. So they're structured functionally. So organizations tend to have that functional feel. There's very little communication and cooperation between the departments, perhaps. There may be weekly meetings between departmental heads who discuss issues, but by and large the functions may start to run almost autonomously. Now this is very dangerous, because now if this starts to happen, the organisation is almost fragmenting. It's starting to break apart. It needs to be held together. Marketing planning is a difficult process to adopt when functional departments are only concerned with their own goals and objectives rather than the corporate goals. And that's the problem, that sometimes within organizations the departments can almost start to function autonomously. They start to get so concerned with their own problems and issues that they almost forget about the organization. They're roped into looking into themselves and to their own processes, and but it's important that all the departments are pulled together to subscribe to the overall objectives of the organization. They should be pulled together in a way that enables them to contribute to the organization. That's why they're there in the first place. So it's essential that there is some communications between the various departments, and the best way probably to do this is through marketing planning, to ensure that what they're doing is in accordance with the marketing plan. So for example, the HR department will recruit only people who can contribute towards the marketing plan. So organizations should be structured around the strategic business units, the SBU, and the focus should be on customer groups, products and services. Now that will enable the organization to be more coherent and more supportive. The various departments are supporting each other. The HR department are recruiting the right people for the right jobs. The production people are making the product in line with customer requirements and ensuring good quality. The design department are making products that the marketing department have determined are desirable within the marketplace. So there is more coherence, there's more direction to the organization. Marketing planning can easily communicate with carries out the SBUs rather than the functional departments. So marketing planning it enables the strategic business units to operate together. The different parts of the organization link together more easily because there is a mechanism through which they communicate. Now that mechanism in broad terms could be the marketing plan, but it could be in a more operational sense weekly meetings to discuss issues of the marketing plan and what can be done within the various functional departments, or if you like to call them SBUs, the strategic business units. What can be done within these units to advance the marketing plan? Now the next one is lack of in-depth analysis. Well, most organizations lack information for undertaking in-depth analysis. I suppose that's an accurate statement, because we all suffer from ignorance of the market conditions, ignorance of customers' requirements, of current developments, of the environment in which we operate. And we get this idea of not knowing from the work of great economists who have pointed out that we simply can't tell the future. It's witchcraft to attempt to predict the future to any great extent. There are so many variables that need to be taken into account, and the world is such a variable place. And probably that's what makes the world such an interesting place. So managers compile a lot of information which is not relevant. It's the case that managers are always trying to put together information and trying to collect information, but some of it may not be relevant. So it's a question of getting a focus and getting a direction into their researches. What does the organization need to know? What is it? What's necessary for the organization to know? And then trying to focus in to get answers to that. Because making sense of the broader environment is a very complicated issue. It involves perhaps very advanced statistical methods and econometrics and all sorts of mathematical tools. And even then, when all of that is done, some economists would say, well, you're still trying to predict the future. And that is, if at the very minimum, that's very difficult. Some economists would say it's totally impossible. Organizations must adopt marketing intelligence systems that allow for information gathering and in-depth analysis of the environment. So, given what I've just said about almost the impossibility of telling the future, I mean, that is, if you just listen to the words, predicting the future, foretelling what's going to happen in the future, it's a very, very big ask. But organizations do keep an eye on the environment. They try to work out the trends in the environment, the way in which fashions and lifestyles and customer requirements are changing. So they keep an eye on it because they could be symptomatic of trends within the environment, within the society, and the organization wishes to position itself perhaps in the long run to meet changes that it suspects may happen. I'm using language here which is very non-scientific and very almost non-technical because of what some economists say. We can't predict the future, so the use of very precise statistical techniques and extrapolating the findings from statistical analysis into the future is very complicated and may not be precise. In fact, it could be downright dangerous, because from what we know of the human condition is we don't like to be predictable. As individuals, we don't like to be predictable. We like to live out our lives. We like to enjoy new things, new experiences. We change our patterns of living from time to time. So it's very difficult to work out trends. But companies keep an eye on markets and see what competitors are doing and what they think. Because in a sense, that's who the company is in battle with. They're in battle with other companies who are working in the same market. So they keep an eye on them to see what products they're bringing out and what they're thinking. They should also look at the competitors in more depth, if possible. I don't mean espionage, I mean looking at their products, because there may be trends in their products which will indicate the way they're thinking about the future. But what precisely happens in the future, whenever the future is, long term, short term, the company should try and position itself and have some flexibility within its processes to enable it to adapt quickly to any market changes and changes in competitors' products or what competitors are doing. It could undertake a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis, but it's just a tool. It's a way of writing down and agreeing what the opportunities and the threats and strengths and weaknesses are. It may help in decision making, but it may just give a list of points that the managers should bear in mind. Now, the confusion between process and output. Well, confusion still stand on the marketing plan, its process and output. So what is the marketing plan? What are its processes and what does it do? There could still be confusion about the marketing plan. Having said all that we've just done, some managers may still be a little confused as to why they should subscribe to the marketing plan and why they themselves can't exercise a little more independence. Marketing plans contain masses of information which senior management fail to acknowledge, simply because of the mass of information contained. And that's a problem with marketing planning. People will want to go their own way if they can't completely understand a complex document, perhaps like the marketing plan. So the marketing plan, ideally, there should be several drafts of it. One containing as much evidence as possible and looking at expert opinion and perhaps having focus groups who have subscribed opinions and so on. So one very detailed and one very straightforward marketing plan, so that the managers are able to assimilate the information quite quickly and able to get to the core of what's required and debate the core of what's required. So perhaps several drafts of the marketing plan are required. The marketing planning process and output is information, internal and external. So the marketing plan is looking at the capability of the organization in terms of its production ability, its personnel, its skills, competencies, its technicality, its innovative departments and so on. It's looking at its strengths and weaknesses, but it's also looking externally and trying to pick up trends and patterns within the broader market. So this it puts forward as information. Then it also looks at marketing intelligence, which forms the marketing plan. Marketing intelligence being linked to the information that's acquired and some critical appraisal of the information, including the assumptions upon which that critical appraisal is based, so that it's laying bare its thinking and it's showing the managers and the people responsible what it considers to be the direction in which the market's moving. It's trying to work out an optimal plan for the business, but it's also exposing its own assumptions and perhaps the weaknesses in its own analysis. It's the process of setting objectives and marketing strategies. So it's setting out the objectives of the business, but its own objectives and its own strategies, how it is going to refine its own processes. So there's an element of self-criticism within marketing to ensure that marketing itself is developing and looking for ways of refining its own activities so as to be more accurate in its assessment of market trends and customer requirements. It looks, or it should look at, the resources the organization hopes to invest. So it should look at the whole industry, look at the different organizations in the industry, see what they're investing, but then look at what the company itself is investing, and trying to work out not just the amount of the investment, but the pattern of the investment. What is being invested in? What sort of technology? What sort of what's been achieved from the investments, and what's the likely return on the investments? But working that out is very difficult, because working out likely returns on investment means looking into the future again, and looking into the future is notoriously difficult. So working out returns on investment is difficult. But nonetheless, it should make some attempt at doing so as to make sure that the business is structured in line with market trends. The output is the outcome of the implementation of the marketing plan. The outcome of the business, the new products that are introduced, the way in which the products are marketed, and so on, this is the outcome of the marketing plan. So the marketing plan is central in pushing forward the business. This is what drives the business. Next, lack of knowledge and skills. Well, a lack of knowledge and skills is a major barrier to marketing planning. Clearly, there must be adequate knowledge base within the business, both in terms of production of the product, design of the product, ensuring quality, but also adequate knowledge within the marketing section itself to make them aware of what is happening within the market and what are the customer requirements. And there should be requisite skills. The skills that are needed should be in place to pick up on the various issues that are identified. Marketing managers need to have a good knowledge of marketing theory and its application. Marketers need to be able to effectively apply marketing techniques to their job. Marketing managers can't do properly a good role or an efficient role without a good foundation in marketing principles. They should understand the nature of marketing. They should understand the requirements for quality and why quality is important. They should understand why customer needs need to be addressed and determined. So membership of an institute like the Chartered Institute of Marketing would be very welcome, and subscription to organizations which will update marketing managers on modern techniques and current ways of thinking should be encouraged for managers. Managers should participate in seminars outside of the organization and learn from other organizations what they are doing, and keep abreast of the literature. There is a management assumption that marketers possess both knowledge and skills to be effective in their job. This is not always the case. Sometimes senior marketing executives may have been promoted within the organization. It doesn't mean they have wide experience of other organizations. It could also be the case that they've been promoted from other areas within the organization and may not have a background in marketing and may not fully appreciate the importance of the function itself. Marketers must have good communications and interpersonal skills. They must have appropriate skills to be able to communicate their marketing plans to senior management and to employees throughout the strategic business units. So they must have good communication skills. They must have good written skills, good oral skills. They should be able to conduct meetings, make presentations. They should be able to deal one-to-one. They should have good interpersonal skills. And if they've got these, they can communicate the message more effectively. They need to be able to use marketing techniques such as Porter's 5 Forces, the Ansoff Matrix, Product Life Cycle, Boston Consulting Group, 4Ps, etc., etc. They should be familiar with the language of marketing, the techniques that have been developed by marketers in their own literature and professionally. They should be able to use these frameworks and try to clarify issues within the organization using these frameworks. So they should be familiar with them. Now, lack of systematic approach to marketing. Well, marketing planning needs to be approached in a systematic manner. Marketing planning needs to have a framework. It can't just happen. It needs to be organized, planned. There should be a sequence in place, a sequence of steps that need to be followed, appropriate personnel allocated to the various steps and functions, ensuring the personnel have the appropriate skills, and so it should be done very systematically. Organizations operate efficiently when there are systems in place. These systems can be formal or informal. They can be systems which require paperwork and logging and perhaps to be signed off by other members of the department, or they can be very informal. But there needs to be some sort of system in place that takes the plan, the marketing plan, and takes it through its various phases and records its effectiveness, looks at the issues that have arisen from the implementation of the plan, looks at problems, looks at solutions that were tried, looks at ways in trying to address problems, and so it should be done systematically. Whether it's formal or informal depends on the situation really the organization finds itself in and the nature of the product itself. Systems ensure that processes are followed and actions are taken when they are supposed to. The organization has a standard which needs to be adhered to. It's important that the marketing plan is delivered according to a sequence. It should be developed according to a sequence, and it should be monitored according to the sequence. And action should be taken when required. But there should be careful analysis of all of the steps in the process and ensuring that all the possible angles or conceivable angles are addressed and that it's implemented effectively. Organizations must have some format or written procedures which will enable systems to be effective. They should have a process, perhaps some pro formas which are to be filled out at each stage. If for nothing else, just to say that that stage was scrutinized and analyzed and checked to make sure that it was working effectively before the next stage is monitored. All the current marketing issues should be considered by the marketer. They should be familiar with, as I said, outside thinking, thinking from a very marketing professional stance. What do the textbooks recommend? What do the journals recommend? What is good practice? What are other companies doing? Participate in seminars, and also look at what's happening internally and try to work out what is the best course of action at each stage of the marketing plan. To bring together the strategic marketing plan, taking into account each strategic business unit. It's important that all of the what we would call, perhaps in the past, the functional areas of the organisation are considered within the context of the marketing plan. Each of the functional areas, the strategic business units, if you like, of the business, they will need consideration. They have their own requirements, they have their own needs, they have their own issues, their own problems, and these should be recognised. And the marketing plan designed so as to incorporate those issues and to deal with those issues. But the marketing plan should not be structured in a way which places a lot of pressure on those departments given their resource envelopes. They may not be able to meet the requirements of the marketing plan with the resources that they're being given. It helps senior management consider current business activities and conditions and offers an insight into future business prospects. Certainly the business plan is a good picture for the senior management of where the business is going and how well it's doing. So it's an important document. Now 9, failure to prioritize objectives. Objective setting is an element of marketing planning, and it determines the success of the plan. So it's important that the objectives are clearly worked out. As I said a moment ago, it should be worked out in the context of the available resources, human and capital. It should be worked out given the skills and competencies of the workers, given the physical resources of the business. And it should also be worked out in the context of the extensiveness of the market plan itself, because perhaps the company can't afford to have a very elaborate marketing plan and have conducted a lot of market research and so on. It's expensive, so some companies may not be able to afford it. But it's important to have a marketing plan, and it's a way of measuring the success of the business as well as giving the business emphasis and direction. A marketing plan can consist of many objectives, further broken down into sub-objectives. We can imagine a marketing plan as with a heading, say, something like meet customers' expectations. Well, that's a very generic term. Meet customers' expectations in what way? Well, ensuring the pricing strategy is right, ensuring the quality is right, ensuring the delivery, ensuring the aftercare service. So we can see various subheadings immediately under that one heading. So it's important that the marketing plan is detailed, and as detailed as the company can make it. So it's anticipating all of what is required. Organizations fail to prioritize objectives on level of importance and fail to allocate time resources for each objective. Now that could be a failure of organizations. They need to prioritize. They need to make sure that the important issues are dealt with, and dealt with first. So it's important that the organization recognize what the objectives are and the importance of the objectives, so that the most important are dealt with first, working their way down the list until all of the various issues are dealt with, of course, but prioritizing, making sure that the main tasks are dealt with first. It's very easy for senior management to become overwhelmed by day-to-day work activities, which results in non-implementation of the market plan. So the marketing plan should be emphasized all the time from senior management. The importance of the marketing plan should be emphasized, and the marketing section itself should be working on the marketing plan almost on a continuous basis. It may have short-term tactical activities to occupy its mind as well, and other issues, advertising and meetings with suppliers and meetings with outlets and so on. But it'll also need to develop professionally and attend seminars and make sure that its work is in line with contemporary practice. But it's very easy for senior management in particular to get overwhelmed by what's happening right now. And what's happening right now could be a machine has broken down, or a delivery has not been made, or some issue of this nature, which is important, but it should all be done within the ambit, within the confines of the marketing plan. It should be factored in. There should be a smooth rota of activities. There should be regular maintenance of equipment and to ensure that there are no breakdowns. It should be all planned in advance. And the possibility of surprises, adverse surprises like the one I just mentioned, should be obviated as a consequence. Organizations must ensure that objectives are prioritized based on their importance and urgency. Resources must be allocated accordingly. So it's important that objectives are prioritized and that the organization commits resources to ensure that the most important objectives are completed and met. The box has to be ticked, and then move on to the next one. So it's a function of management, and an important function of management, that this is the way the business should be run. Now the final point is hostile corporate culture. Well, corporate culture represents a widespread ignorance to marketing planning. At least some textbooks suggest that. Also, some textbooks suggest that it's changing and that there's greater understanding now of the need for marketing and the role of marketing in the organization. Clearly, this point depends on the nature of the product being promoted. So if a company is engaged in selling shares, for example, then it may not need an extensive marketing department. If the company is marketing a product, I should say, to the general public, it may need an extensive marketing department. So there are elements that need to be factored in here. It depends on the number of customers and the amount of sales. Sometimes we get fixated with the idea that the marketing department is dealing with a mass market. But it could be companies only have 2 or 3 customers. So they don't need an extensive marketing department. However, they do need a marketing plan in the sense of, as I just mentioned, prioritizing objectives, determining the customer's requirements, linking to the customer and making sure that the customers are happy in terms of after sales and quality and so on. So they do need a marketing plan. It just may not be as extensive as if it was selling to the general public. So it depends. Organizations present the attitude that one size fits all. Organizations concentrate on one marketing plan and apply it to different stages of the organization's development. Well, ideally, one plan seems efficient, but the one plan could have subsections, like I suggested earlier, and these subsections could relate to the different strategic business units. So the personnel will have a particular brief on the type of personnel required and their functions and so on. The production will have a brief on what is required of them, the distribution, a brief on what's required of them, and all of these are fitted within the marketing plan. So the marketing plan is what is, in a sense, driving the business. Most organizations fail to identify that marketing planning is tailored to an organization's requirements, because that's what it is. It's looking at the requirements of the organization, and it's trying to meet those requirements, meet them efficiently, prioritizing them, getting the sequence right, looking at the requirements of the market, making sure that the product is contemporary, well designed, good quality, and so on. The stage of the organization life and corporate culture affects the success of the marketing plan. If the organization is running down because of the product it makes is no longer required by the customer, then the organization may start to become dysfunctional, in the sense that it is placing less reliance on the marketing plan, and it's simply firefighting. It's trying to sell as much as it can. It recognizes its product has got a limited lifespan. It's running out. There's more desperation almost within the organization. In fact, perhaps a better strategy would be to have more reliance on the marketing plan, and to try to determine customer needs, how they've changed, develop a new product, innovate the product, or develop a new product to meet new customer requirements, and perpetuate the business in that way. It all, of course, is contingent upon there being sufficient resources to do so. But sometimes, when the organization is feeling that its product life cycle is towards the end, it's in decline, it may start to drop key functions, and an element of desperation sets in. Perhaps a better strategy would be to regroup, put more emphasis on the marketing plan, and change the marketing plan, do some more market research, tweak the product, change the product, use the existing technology and know-how of the business, and restructure. But it depends on the resources, whether the resources are available to do that. Corporate culture represents a widespread ignorance to marketing planning. That's, again, perhaps an old view, but one which some texts were suggesting. The marketing planning process was seen as a minor activity within the organization, and was mostly internal to the marketing department. It was how they went about their tasks, and it didn't really leave the marketing department. It was how the marketing department organized itself and delivered its own services. We now think of marketing planning as doing that, but also influencing other parts of the organization: product design, quality, delivery, after-sales service, and so on. Organizations present the attitude that one size fits all. Organizations concentrate on one marketing plan and apply it to different stages of the organization development. There's a problem that sometimes the marketing plan does not apply equally throughout the organization. It needs to be modified to incorporate different parts of the organization. It can't just be developed for the organization in total. It must be developed for the components of the organization, the various departments of the organization, and ensure that it is achievable given the resources of those various departments. And it's important that the organizations see the marketing plan as meeting their requirements, meeting the requirements of the organization. There should be a feeling that the marketing plan is not just a useful document, it's an essential document. This is what is given direction to the organization, giving it purpose. And it's also given it some metrics, it's given it some targets to meet. So there is incentive for departmental heads to work towards achieving what is required in the marketing plan. The stage of the organizational life and corporate culture affects the success of the marketing plan. Now, I've discussed this one earlier, but it's important that the senior management of the organization ensure that the marketing plan is implemented, irrespective of the environmental conditions it finds itself in. Because if you take away the marketing plan, then the organization is truly adrift. It's without any direction. So it must maintain its direction. It must be under control. An analogy I've seen in one text was that the marketing plan was like the rudder of a boat. It gives the boat the direction. Take away the rudder and the boat will go in circles or won't go anywhere in particular. So it's important that the marketing plan is supported and implemented. The marketing plan itself may be varied in line with research, but irrespective of what's happening overall in the market or happening overall to the organization, the marketing plan should still be in place, and it should be perhaps tweaked in the light of current developments in the marketplace. So this is a long video, and I'd expect you to have stopped it many times, and I've had lots of cups of tea and lots of cups of coffee and lots of breaks. But it's important to come back, finish it, make your own notes. This is an extremely important topic and one well worth knowing. But that's all we're going to do in this session, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.